This video is part of the Nonprofit Compliance Brief, where we explain charitable solicitation registration and multi-state fundraising compliance in practical terms for nonprofit leaders and finance teams. This resource is provided by Ironwood Registrations. It is incredibly common for nonprofit leaders to assume that registering to ask for donations only matters in the state where they are headquartered. Others believe it is an obligation reserved exclusively for massive national organizations. Because of these assumptions, the requirement often sits entirely off the radar until a crucial moment, like when a major grant maker, a financial auditor, or a payment processing platform suddenly pauses your progress to ask for proof of state registration. This compliance gap rarely shows up during your initial formation. It surfaces exactly when you are trying to scale, when you launch new online campaigns, attract attention, and start expanding your fundraising footprint across state lines. Getting ahead of these rules is the only way to avoid a chaotic, reactive scramble. Understanding how and when state registrations apply prevents unexpected penalty notices and keeps your critical fundraising activities moving forward without interruption. As this map shows, charitable solicitation registration is a state-level regulatory requirement. The requirement is triggered the moment your organization reaches across a border and asks residents of that specific state for financial contributions. It is crucial to understand that this is entirely separate from your federal compliance. Forming your nonprofit corporation and obtaining 501c3 status, which is the federal tax exemption category for charitable organizations, are federal obligations. The same goes for filing your Form 990, the annual financial return required by the IRS. State fundraising registration is a completely distinct, independent hurdle. States enforce these independent rules for a few specific reasons. They want to protect their resident donors from fraud, ensure high levels of financial transparency, and closely monitor any professional third-party fundraisers operating within their borders. And the definition of solicitation is incredibly broad. It covers direct mail, of course, but it heavily impacts digital outreach. When you send email campaigns, launch text-to-give initiatives, or post fundraising appeals on social media, you are actively soliciting. You do not need to have a physical office or staff members in a state to be regulated by it. In many jurisdictions, simply conducting online fundraising is more than enough to establish a legal registration obligation. Because the internet makes your content accessible everywhere, simply adding a donate button to a local nonprofit's website instantly transforms that organization into a multi-state actor, subject to the jurisdiction of states hundreds of miles away. This reality leads to two major compliance mistakes. First, organizations incorrectly assume their federal tax-exempt status provides blanket protection from state laws. Second, they mistakenly believe that online activities are somehow exempt from state-level regulatory scrutiny. Two more common traps involve timing. Nonprofits often wait until they receive a formal compliance letter from an attorney general before acting, or they manage to register once but completely forget to track the annual renewal deadlines, falling out of compliance almost immediately. The final operational failure is a lack of internal data. If your team is not actively tracking the geographic origin of your donations, it becomes mathematically impossible to assess your multi-state legal exposure. Looking at this 50-state grid, you can see the chaotic reality of multi-state compliance. There is no unified national system. Instead, you face up to 50 independent regulatory frameworks, each with completely different forms, varying fee structures, unique financial thresholds, and overlapping, unsynchronized renewal deadlines. This means a single successful online campaign, perhaps one shared broadly by an enthusiastic board member or an ambitious development team, can inadvertently trigger legal requirements in dozens of these independent state systems simultaneously. Without a unified national framework, geographically scaling your fundraising without intentional upfront planning is a massive risk. It quickly generates a heavy accumulation of backfilings and a pile of compliance debt that can take months to untangle. The most effective way to handle this complexity is to shift your organizational mindset. Instead of engaging in reactive panic filing after a campaign goes viral, you need to build intentional, strategic compliance planning into your baseline operations. Leadership teams should start with two primary diagnostic questions. Exactly where are we currently making active solicitations? And do our current internal systems reliably track the home state of every single donor? From there, finance and development teams need to collaborate. Audit the language on your website to see how broad your appeals are. Confirm whether the online platforms you use require specific state disclosures, and ensure every upcoming renewal deadline is locked tightly into your internal calendars. Resolving your registration status cannot be an afterthought. It must become a mandatory, standard step in your workflow long before you launch new, wide-reaching online campaigns or apply for out-of-state grants. Ultimately, charitable solicitation registration is an inevitable byproduct of your nonprofit's success. As your fundraising reach successfully expands across the map, your compliance infrastructure must proactively scale right alongside it. For additional compliance guides and educational resources on charitable solicitation registration and multi-state fundraising compliance, visit ironwoodregistrations.com.